With this, yesterday, south of the border, on the undercard of Gallo Estrada's ring return, we saw young Camila Zamarano fight for the WBC interim title in the atom weight division against seasoned veteran Mika Iwakawa. And as expected, Camila won her fight, became interim champion, advancing to a professional record of 12 wins with no losses, no draws, and 1 recorded knockout, though being interim champion means you're in line to fight for the full title that Tina Ruprecht currently holds, along with all the others in the atom weight division. Lest we forget, Tina is undisputed champion in that division, and I hardly think that after 12 professional bouts, young Camila is ready to take her on, ready to challenge her. A big part of the marketing strategy for Camila is that she's a very young fighter, about 17 years old, and they're marketing her as the youngest world champion in the sport right now, if you want to count an interim title as a world title.
I don't.
Been seeing more and more of this the last few years in the sport via the sanctioning bodies and the powers that be trying to validate, trying to qualify these secondary titles as full titles and those who hold them as full champions, effectively watering down the sport in this part of the world. You don't see it anywhere else. You don't see it in the UK, in Japan, in Australia. I think Camila is a very good young fighter with a bright future, by the way, but let's not kid ourselves. It's an interim title. It's not a full title. At the very most, it makes you the mandatory challenger for this division's bona fide champion, Tina Ruprecht. So you're not making history by becoming a mandatory. And as stated, I don't think Camila is anywhere near ready for a fight with someone like Tina Ruprecht, who's been in there with Yo Castavalle, Sinicia Estrada, Fabiana Baticki.
Nowhere near.
They're setting her up to fail if they want to use that interim title as a segue to challenge for the full title for all the marbles at atomweight. Camila, as stated, is very young and has very generous physical dimensions for an atomweight. She's got a lot of height, a lot of length, and she is still learning, to where as she starts to fill out, as she matures, because her body is still growing, she could see herself campaigning at minimum weight, light fly, maybe even super fly. It's not dissimilar from what you see in Gabby Fundora, that one day she may see herself campaigning as high as feather because of her generous physical dimensions. Now, I don't know that the people at Zanfer really want to put Camila in the ring with Tina Ruprecht. I would sooner expect them to stage defenses of Camila's interim title than use it as a segue to force a fight with Tina. That would be the better way to go. And I've long maintained that if you're Top Rank, and if you're Matchroom, and if you're still signing female fighters doing shows in the American market, it wouldn't be a bad idea to pick up a female fighter of Mexican descent, because here in America, we all know that Mexican fighters move the needle. Now, Top Rank must have been listening to the relay, because they just signed a young fighter in Perla Basualda. So I think it would be a bad idea for Matchroom, whose female stable is thinning out, to perhaps pick up Camila. Why not? It's not going to be expensive to make her fights. In a very general sense, atomweights run a lot cheaper than, say, welters and middles and super middles, so on and so forth. And that's when it comes to the men. It's even cheaper when it comes to the women, to where you can more than afford to do her fights and groom this fighter and put her on the world stage. Familiarize the audience with her. And because she's only 17 years old, she's got many, many good years to give to the sport, to where you have more than enough time to develop this fighter.
So I don't think
think that would be a bad idea to add her to the Matchroom stable of Valkyries. For now, congratulations to young Camila for sealing the deal. The prediction stuck. I felt that she could, at minimum, decision Mika Iwakawa, and she did just that. But as stated, I do not expect her to challenge Tina for all the marbles. She's not ready for a fight like that with a fighter like that.
When he gets in the ring after and he, do you feel disrespected by the way he spoke in the ring after about being a free agent? Because it kind of looked at your face and you didn't look too happy.
Yeah, I did feel disrespected because it's not him. It's just dogs around him that put things like, I mean, there is no loyalty in boxing. You've got to look after yourself. But when someone has come in, when you were on the floor, and, you know, I remember when I first met Richardson Hitchins, I mean, the door of his car was falling off. And to be honest, I've spent a lot of money and invested in a young man that I really respect and admire. And I've boxed him at Madison Square Garden. I've headlined him in Orlando when we really didn't sell any tickets and we lost a lot of money. I kept with it. I headlined him in Las Vegas, where again we didn't sell many tickets and we lost money. Then I paid for him to get the opportunity to fight Liam Paro for the world title. Then I paid up for a big opponent in George Kambosos, paid up for the big homecoming in New York. But Richardson is a very good kid. He's just got some snakes around him. And those snakes will make you feel like they're your guy. But the reality is they're bloodsuckers who actually, certain individuals, take a bigger percentage or the same percentage as the promoter that's bankrolling you and paying for your entire path in the sport and making the investment. Managers have zero risk, right? They just let the promoter do all the work. They negotiate the deal. And by the way, a good manager is good for your career. But they just let the promoter do all the work, make the investment, risk their money, and then after the fight go, thank you very much, pay me for a couple of phone calls, right? And I just understand the game. So it doesn't infuriate me. I just go, you're a dog, you'll get what's fucking coming to you. That's all. And, you know, that's boxing.
Adding to that, Eddie Hearn stated, "It didn't sit well with me, so I pulled Richardson to one side quietly after back in the changing rooms and told him how I felt. It left a really bad taste in my mouth after all, the investment we've made in his career." He never had to sign Richardson Hitchins. He never had to extend that olive branch to a fighter that Mayweather Promotions wasn't pushing, Mayweather Promotions wasn't investing in. He said, "I had a heartwarming call from Turkey El Sheikh this morning, who confirmed he will only deal with Matchroom moving forward on Richardson Hitchins. So we will begin those discussions." Okay, let's provide a little bit more clarity here. Who is it that Eddie Hearn is talking about? Who manages the career of Richardson Hitchins? Keith Connolly manages the career of Richardson Hitchins. The same Keith Connolly who also manages the career of Edgar Berlanga. Same Edgar Berlanga who decided not to extend his deal with Matchroom and try his hand at free agency, likely under the counsel of Keith Connolly, who seems to be working hard to cut Matchroom out of the picture after they spend all their money, after they make an investment. Why? Well, Keith is likely thinking to himself, why include Matchroom and why continue with them when we can work with Turkey independently and keep more of that money to ourselves? Working with Turkey directly. That's more or less the situation when it comes to Edgar, who's set to take on Hamza Shiraz on the next Ring Magazine show. I guess that Keith had it in his head that he could set something up like that for Richardson Hitchins, but the buck stops here. And I'm not going to put it all on Keith Connolly either, because Keith Connolly is not the fighter. It's not all on Keith. Some bit of it is on Richardson Hitchins too, who appears to me to be another ingrate. Like so many ungrateful American fighters that think it's a given that a promoter spend their money on them and make that investment. Without that investment, you don't have a career. Or did you already forget that Mayweather Promotions had you sitting on the shelf doing nothing, collecting dust? I remember an interview where Richardson Hitchins said he used to have to beg them
for fight dates.
So that Matchroom can step in, pick you up, put some money in your pocket,
Get you to a title.
and this is how you thank them. Hitchins is to Matchroom what Teofimo Lopez was to Top Rank.
An ingrate.
Shakur Stevenson too. See, fighters like this, with this attitude, are a dime a dozen. They are all looking to game the system, game the promoters, and make off like bandits.
That's why I don't feel sorry for them. That's why I'm not one of these content creators that plays the fighters the violin. Sometimes the fighters are jerks. Sometimes the fighters are ingrates and they're just greedy.
If what Richardson Hitchins has in his head now is that free agency is the best way to go for him who can't sell out a bingo hall, go ahead!
Look at how well that's working for Devin right now.
Devin, who didn't want to make a commitment to a promoter, Devin Haney, who did not want to make a commitment to Matchroom, and as a result of that, he's not Matchroom's problem. You're on your own, buddy.
You're a promoter, right? DHP. You can promote your own fights.
Pay yourself. This push towards free agency from these fighters all stems from the Mayweather era and how Al Heyman bought out his top-ranked contract. Floyd wasn't happy over there. He wanted to leave the promotional banner, and he did. The part of the story they keep forgetting, though, is that he wasn't a free agent after that. Not really. He was working closely with Golden Boy Promotions. He just went from one promoter to another.
Wasn't really a free agent.
The part of the story that people tend to forget is at the time that Al Heyman bought out Floyd Mayweather's contract, Al Heyman himself was working closely with Golden Boy Promotions.
And that's where he funneled Floyd Mayweather to Golden Boy Promotions, where he fought for a good number of fights. It was Golden Boy Promotions cutting the checks. It wasn't Floyd Mayweather paying himself.
But a gross misrepresentation of what happened to Floyd after he left Top Rank is why so many of today's young fighters think that free agency is the right move for them. These guys that can't fill a high school auditorium.
Like Richardson Hitchins under the counsel of Keith Connolly.
You know, it's the way that Eddie Hearn says it is. The one taking on all the risk really is the promoter, investing their money in the fighter in the hopes that at some point there will be an ROI, whereas the manager is there to act as a buffer to help negotiate on the fighter's behalf and make a couple of phone calls, but they're not the ones risking any money.
Read through a contract to decipher the legalese, all on the fighter's behalf.
Though sometimes the counsel that a manager provides to a fighter is not necessarily the best, and, sometimes it's really in their own best interests and not even the fighters.
Keith seems to want to cut Matchroom out of the deal.
Because Keith figures that, that's one less hand in the cookie jar, and they can get more money. Thus, he can get a bigger cut. That's the rationale.
But Richardson Hitchins is not so interesting a fighter that he should try his hand at free agency. Mayweather never had him headline in his own shows.
Do you think he would have been able to land a fight with somebody like George Kambosos if it weren't Matchroom cutting the checks?
Right.
Men's heavyweight news. Gutted Justice Huni is keen for a rematch with Fabio Wardley that in all likelihood he's not going to get anytime in the near future.
Justice Huni is hoping to run his fight back with Fabio Wardley. The Australian heavyweight was left gutted when, having controlled the contest at Portman Road in Ipswich, he was caught by a tremendous right hand in round 10 that finished the fight. "I am absolutely gutted," said Huni. "I felt like I was doing everything right, just boxing smart and sticking to the plan. I got caught. It happens in this sport. Congratulations to Flavio. He's a warrior, and he found the shot that he needed, but this isn't the end of me, not even close. I would absolutely love a rematch. I stepped up on short notice."
Huni is promoted by Tasman Fighters, and Mick Francis, Tasman's co-founder, said, "We are incredibly proud of Justice, who took this fight on short notice, walked into a football stadium full of Wardley fans, and put on a boxing clinic for 9 rounds. This is only the beginning of his journey. He showed on Saturday night he belongs with the best in the world." Francis was also left questioning the referee, John Latham, and his decision to stop the fight, and signaling Wardley moving on to 19-0 with 1 draw and 18 knockouts, with Huni losing for the first time in his 13th bout.
Huni!
"With total respect to the referee, we were surprised Justice wasn't given the full 10 count," he said. "I feel like he should be given every right to try and continue, but the safety of the fighter comes first, and we respect the decision." Francis said Tasman Fighters remain fully committed to Huni, who had stepped in for Jarrell Miller, Wardley's original opponent. And look at how well Justice was able to do without a full camp, and how much better could he do if he actually has one? There's been some debate as to whether or not that was a lucky punch that Fabio got in the 10th, because the fight clearly got away from him and got away from him early. Some say that there are no lucky punches in boxing. What you saw was the byproduct of repetition and preparation.
Seeing the opportunity and seizing it. But of course, there has to be an opportunity, and that's where I think he got lucky. As luck quantified is preparation meeting opportunity.
Lucky punch is not the right way to put it, but Fabio definitely got lucky that so late into a fight that he was clearly losing, he got an opportunity to land a big right hand.
A hole in Justice Huni's defenses as he was opening up and trying to put combinations together created the opportunity that allowed Fabio to get that right hand off. But if not for that...
So what direction this fight was going? And if you doubt that rationale, ask yourself a question. If it wasn't luck, what are the odds that Fabio Wardley and Frank Warren give Justice Huni a second crack at the apple? A rematch is actually warranted because for long spells, Justice Huni was in control of the fight. He got caught with a good shot. Let's see it again. Let's see if lightning can strike twice.
And I'm not the one asking for it. Justice Huni's asking for it. Mick Francis is asking for it.
I know they're not going to get it. I know that Frank won't roll the dice putting Fabio back in there with this guy. And you know why? Because it was luck.
Because he got lucky.
Now that doesn't diminish or denigrate his comeback win over Justice Huni. It's valid.
But you don't know that that's going to happen again. Because it was luck.
And it's so being luck, you can't bank on that. And you won't roll the dice giving this guy a full camp against Fabio Wardley. Rematches are often won by the fighter who can change and the fighter who can adapt. The cerebral fighter. And that fighter really is more Justice Huni than it is Fabio Wardley. The classic matchup of the boxer versus the puncher.
Justice is the boxer. Fabio is so obviously the puncher.
Fabio's ready to move on. There's talk of him wanting to take on Derek Chisora in what will be Derek's swan song. I don't know if he's going to get that fight because there's also talk of Derek's swan song coming in a trilogy against Joseph Parker. Though addressing the elephant in the room, there's no shame in saying that Fabio got lucky. He saw an opportunity open up and he seized it. But the opportunity even being there in a fight that was going that way, that was damn luck.
You got lucky.
There is a lot more work needs doing, and things are only going to get harder from here on out for Fabio Wardley as he approaches world title contention, world level status. The opponents don't get easier to deal with. They get harder.
What about Justice? What should he do now?
Go back to Australia, stage a couple of smaller fights, rebuild yourself, build yourself back up, because you just gave a great account of yourself as the away fighter.
Don't let the loss fester and don't let too much time pass. You get out there as soon as you can against some ham and egg guy to get yourself back in the winner's bracket.
Justice Huni established himself as one of the somebodies in this division, a formidable fighter in his own right.
He ain't gonna get that rematch though.
Seen a lot of pointless rematches in the sport of boxing, fights that didn't need a sequel. This one does. But that's why it won't happen.
Too close a call, too close for comfort for Flavio.